Right. Hello, everyone. I'll see who else starts popping in, but so we can get started. So, anyways, just to start off, I kind of want to apologize. It's been a crazy 6 weeks for me in terms of technology. I had to figure out how to redo my password because it all changed. We had the initial issues with Brightspace, and then my computer battery died, so I had to figure out a new way to get into the system. So it's been I really feel chaotic 6 weeks. So hopefully you haven't noticed too much, but I'm trying to. I think we're all caught up now. But for today, I mean, it's office hours. I don't really have anything presented. I'm thinking it's more of a ask me anything or ask Tara and I anything. So I kind of want to just open it up to if there are questions people have, or to get some further explanations either on the readings or the upcoming assignments, especially the action memo. We're happy to talk it out. Otherwise, we can maybe talk more in depth about how people see the cooperative enterprise model in their work and going forward, and where and how they might incorporate the new cooperative paradigm. Janella, go ahead. I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Yeah. Good.
You're cutting in and out. I'm getting like half syllable.
Question is, now my credit union, my organization. Are you hearing me better? Hello?
Yes, I can
Are you
hear
hearing
you.
me?
Yes, now perfect.
I don't know. Let me take off the video.
Are you hearing me better? I'm going to type the question in the chat.
Yes.
I will type in the chat. Okay. My organization is a credit union. That's a financial cooperative. I was wondering how to approach the action memo from that angle. Question?
Yeah, I mean, I think with the action memo, it's thinking where is there a strategic advantage for you to be engaging either marketing the credit union or building community member buy-in. I think is always a really good way to think about it. How do you build more loyalty among members and get them to see the cooperative difference? So it's where are there options for the credit unions to really engage? I'm trying to think of if there are any examples from last year. Maybe Tara might have some off the top of my head. I might have to look, but we, definitely thinking about. I think member engagement is the biggest thing to me. Is where you can build that sort of sense of psychological ownership among members, where they don't just see the credit union as their bank, but as part of their part of themselves, right? So it's the sense making that goes in with that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Captain Nomara.
Actually, can I ask a question about the same sort of
Sure.
the same line? I guess I'm with a credit union as well, and my thoughts were sort of we have a big housing crisis here in, well, I think a lot of places, but in Nova Scotia. So my thoughts were about coming up with financing for some tiny home communities, micro living, that sort of thing. And so is that kind of the right angle that we're looking for? Is that specific of an item?
Sure. I mean, I think if it's addressing housing and that's a big issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You can be as I mean, it's really, I think taking, I would say probably, you probably want to address something that's within your particular area, because, imagine if you were presenting this to a management team or the board, depending on where you are. And, they would also want to know, well, who's going to do this work? And so it's, probably best if it's your department that's doing it, or
Yes.
rather than expecting other people to carry it through. But yeah, I think definitely creating new services and new options for your members is always a great thing to do. Right.
Perfect. And one other question on that. So in the action memo, I was from a formatting perspective, hopefully you were going to talk about that a little bit, but because if I'm presenting this to the board, if I'm doing a lot of referencing of sort of minor Novogich and that sort of thing, like how am I going to tie that into so it makes sense for everybody else other than just an academic paper?
Yeah. I mean, I would say, what you have to do for the class is, of course, needs to be pretty academic. But I would suggest, in doing a presentation like to a board or management team, you might want to rewrite it a little bit and put it more into you still want to use the same format, I think, of identifying the problem, identifying 3 potential solutions that are all viable, right? That could all be chosen, and then doing the pros and cons of each and picking the one that most aligns with cooperative values and also the mission of the credit union. And then within that, doing your presentation, I mean, like I think that's where you might kind of dive in more to the sort of the foundational structures, but I don't think you necessarily, it's about telling in a way where people don't have to read Cote to understand, right, what you're talking about.
Okay.
And or go through our program. So it's yeah, it's a little bit of a tool that's probably still going to need some fine work, and that's something that maybe at the optional session on the 20th, if people want to share, we can workshop a little bit for how would a board approach the language. But like I would think in that, if people do want to show up on the 20th to share, I would think you would use basically 5, maybe 6 slides tops, one to identify the problem and explore it, and then one for each of the proposed solutions, and then one for the reason for the recommendation. And so think of it that way, as no more than 5 or 6 PowerPoint slides to go through it. And so, in terms of talking to a management team or board, I don't know if you have any thoughts, Tara, on how.
I think like the goal is to create this action memo that you can take to the board. So start from there. And then like as you go through, you want to outline your problem. So like what's your problem? What are your solutions? From there, you can build in the detail under each of those solutions. So like I would almost write it as if like you're writing it for the board and then adding the academia on top to support it for the class, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of thinking about it.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, and we really hope that people do go forth and take these programs further, because I think it's always a great example of the impact of the program itself, and then also helps board and management teams see the value of having their staff in the program. So it's a little bit of marketing on our end, I guess, as well. Okay. Other questions, or is there anything people felt they wanted more to explore further?
Hi, John. This is Laura.
No?
Sorry if it's loud. I'm driving at the moment, but I am hands-free. For the formatting, I just wanted to share with the group. I found some resources in the Purdue OWL website. If you go in and search for Action Memo, they do give you some tips on formatting.
Oh, wow. I'll have to check that out. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Who had their hand up?
Oh, it was me. As I'm like, I've written an outline, and think one of the ways that I want to approach it is kind of like a scale of the do nothing. Here's an achievable short-term solution that we can do right now, and then the third option being something a little bit more long-term. Would you say that that is an appropriate way to approach it, or should it be a little bit more specific to action that can be taken right now?
Some people do have done memos where one of the solutions, might end up being more long-term, and then the proposed solution is what are kind of initial steps, right? So you might have one that is kind of the really big, crazy idea, and that might really be the best thing to do, but to get there, you still have to do some foundational work. So, that can be a way too of helping to lead a board into a long-term strategic vision. So that's another way that the action memo can be used. Is in a way you're sort of setting up, you're sort of setting up the argument for what you see as a strategic vision, and so yeah, can either be definitely an immediate concern. I think most boards are going to want to see something that they can be very tangible and can actually see happen within their term, but if you can also connect it to a larger picture, then that's I think really valuable as well.
Yeah, I think the challenge that I'm having kind of condensing my ideas here is around including more stakeholders. So I guess my second part to this question is there, I've been looking at Weaver Street Co-op quite a bit, but is there another co-op, consumer grocery co-op that you can think of that's transitioned from a single consumer model to multi-stakeholder?
I can think of two, actually. One is Central Co-op, and they converted to a Solidarity Co-op model as part of as part of a project of a graduate and a couple students of this program. So Dan Arnett was the GM at the time, and then I forget, was Tara, who are the people that were
Susanna Collins.
Yeah, Susanna, and I think there's another person too. And they were going through the program, and so they helped build that decision to turn it over to have workers and consumers. There's also, I think, the Food Conspiracy Co-op in Tucson, Arizona, and that general manager also really valued worker voice and is actually coming to work with us at Northwest Co-op Development Center starting Monday. So I'm really excited about that. And that's how I heard about it. He was telling us about the Food Conspiracy Co-op story in Tucson. So that's another example. And so, yeah, so there's definitely, good examples out there. And, the Central model is also kind of unique in that they have a couple of different labor unions that are also engaged with the workers too. So it's probably one of the more complicated models, but definitely working.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, it feels like kind of a contentious topic to approach, but I'm thinking a lot more about it. So
yeah, I think it's always one of those issues when you're, when you have an existing co-op and you're talking about changing the membership structure is getting the buy-in. You have to first get buy-in from the current members that's a valuable thing for them. And depending on the relationship between the staff and management and the consumer co-op, it's going to, that's going to play a huge part in it. So, and that's, depending on where that's at, some consumer co-ops can have, management that is pretty traditional and not very friendly towards labor. So, and that might create more of a hurdle.
thank you for the examples.
Okay. I'm just answering Jelly's comment with a yes. Yeah, please feel free to build off any from Jelly's chat asking about using examples from previous posts. Feel free to build off of any of your previous posts or work. In fact, I kind of hope that people will kind of be exploring some of these ideas in the modules as they work towards the action memo and kind of build it out. I don't feel it has to be, perfectly new or anything. And is there anything else? I'm never really sure how to go through these office hours, so I'm really hoping it's going to be driven by you. I don't know if Tara, if you have anything you want to add or ideas.
I think just like it seems like people are pretty clear, like, but I would say like focus on understanding what the problem is. Like where in the community are people struggling where you could see like your organization like really making a difference, right? So like try to think about that first. It sounds like all of you are in kind of different spaces when it comes to um, where you work, but also like in your thinking. So like make sure that problem statement is clear. That's really going to help you when you write this memo. And then under that, like in each solution, really like how like what's your differentiator, like that's what this course is all about, like what's the strategic advantage of being a co-op, how are you going to leverage, how are your members going to solve for this, right? Like what is your strategic advantage of being a cooperative or credit union, right? Like how is it going to be different? That's what we really want to see in your outcomes, is you're thinking about, oh, like we can market differently because we can work with our members on this, or we can, which is what John was saying, like really market like the cooperative advantage. Like how do you do that? Like what would that look like? That's going to make a really rich answer for you in the end. It's not just going to be on the marketing side, but it'll be like holistically, what is your strategic advantage, right? So
Yeah, absolutely. And really, of course, because this is, our course is sort of the paired course with cooperative enterprise model, really thinking about those outer rings of the model, right? Which is economy, uh, the environment, and the community, as well as the the internal part as well. So, working off of how does the action memo really bring that cooperative enterprise model to life within your co-op, and within that, then of course the specific readings in this course, especially the new cooperative paradigm. So really thinking about psychological ownership, co-creation of value. That is, I think, really important. How do you create that cooperative difference within your community and within the how you approach the environment, how you build sustainable and resilient communities that are going to be able to face the challenges, not only that you're seeing today, but the challenges that are coming. Specifically, definitely around the environment, but but really having what you're doing rooted in the cooperative enterprise model is, I think, important as well for a solid action memo, that you're really carving out that foundational approach that the co-op is going to be fundamentally different than its investor-owned competitors. And people are going to see that difference as they engage the co-op.
So it's Sarah. So my co-op is cooperators, and I find it to be complex and invigorating and frustrating all in the same. So I've been struggling to, I know what people that have been through the program before have pulled out, and they've been able to really make a difference. So I'm making it too big and powerful in my mind, and so I'm struggling to really kind of get to something that could be meaningful, right? Not just for the assignment, but and so some of the things that you guys just said there is helpful. And so we think that, or do you think it's better if I don't necessarily take a critical eye to my co-op and deal with my frustrations and really look for new opportunities externally? Or this is my yin and my, this is my back and forth, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think whatever's going to feel more comfortable to you, and it can be just about focusing on where these organizations need to be, shoring up. I mean, as I often quote Tom Webb, there's nothing about a co-op that puts a halo on anyone's head, and so our co-ops, in fact, the whole point of talking about isomorphism in our program is that this is a constant force, right? That is always working against the co-op values and principles in business. And so, as managers are dealing with, interacting with a larger economic system that is designed for investors, there's always going to be that pressure to bend that way. And so we need to create a counterforce. And sometimes that does mean being critical, within our organizations, but doing so from a position of caring, right? Of wanting to build up the co-op values and principles to be.
Did anyone else lose John's voice, or is it just me? Is it just me? Might be me.
Did I drop off?
I can hear you okay, John.
Okay. I'm not sure where I dropped off, so Sarah. But yeah, so I think it's I think that's fine. I think it's where your comfort level is. I mean, obviously you don't have to show the memo to anyone, but it can just be for your own personal thinking and how to build your own personal view on how you want to manage within your organization as well. But so I would say be as critical as you want. I mean, obviously we aren't going to share any memos out. It'll always be up to you to what you want to do.
I think if it's like the issue that you're the most passionate about, where you see the most problem, then write about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And try not to be intimidated by all the other cooperators who have come before. Yeah, it's okay. I came from somewhere where we've had 34 graduates go through as well. So when I was in the program as well. So yeah, it's about you, what you bring, like what you're seeing, and especially in cooperators, because you have so many different areas. Um, everything is different. And I think we noticed that definitely as we've read the responses from cooperators. Somebody's talking just about something in depth about insurance, and somebody else is talking about member engagement at a more holistic level, and somebody else is talking about data and analytics as it informs strategy. So because you have such a different broad set of areas that cooperators is in, write about something that you're passionate about, that you see an area where you can really, where there is a problem and you have creative solutions for what you're going to solve through this.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, if there aren't a lot of questions, I think something I would like just to get a sense of, the value of this course is if people are willing to maybe talk about what are one or two things that you're really taking away from this course that you think will stick with you. It's it helps us think about where the course resonates. I mean, obviously we see the evaluations and we try to make adjustments to them, but it's always, I think, better to hear from people, and in fact, one of the reasons we're doing the optional session on the 20th after the course is over is because people have asked in the past how much they wanted to see other action memos, and that's not, again, something we can do, but it's something that you can offer. So I don't know if you want to go around and maybe just say one or two things that you're taking away. And this isn't I'm not seeking compliments for either myself or Tara. I really just want to kind of hear back and see, to kind of gauge if the things that we thought we were presenting are things that are actually resonating. So Janella, we can start with you if you want, unless you have a question. Or not, I'm not sure. Otherwise, I don't, I can start maybe with Kim, since you're at the top of my screen, and maybe you can just you can go around after that.
Yeah, sure. So really enjoyed this this course. It had brought kind of that you know, everything that we learned in the first part, bringing it in, seeing it evolve into the new cooperative paradigm, how it all kind of works together. But I think the thing that really resonated with me is that caring component that I think a lot, because I deal with a lot of credit unions, and I think we've really gotten away from that, that community caring and just kind of like, okay, yeah, that's where we have to get back to. And it just kind of supports some of the passion that I've had for the credit union system, and to kind of relight a fire under me saying, hey, yeah, you know what, we need to do some things. And so I've had an opportunity even to talk with Corey, who is out of Newfoundland, who did the master's program, and you know, sharing how they were able to help in their area create a cooperative daycare, because it was a real area that was needed. And now he's getting all kinds of calls, and he's saying, you know, he's having to say, yeah, only if you're truly interested in developing a cooperative, I'm here to help. But if you're just looking for ideas that are not going to go in that area, you know, I'm not. So kind of hearing, you know, it is spreading, seeing this happen. So I think, you know, it's really good to get back to caring. So it kind of just helped to light the fire under me, just keep that passion alive that, you know, is easy to dwindle as you get into, especially with the credit union, that banking, that transactional activities. So
That's great. Thanks. Let's go to Tanya and then Sarah.
Yeah, same. I think this has been my favorite course so far. And I'm not just saying that, but I think things are definitely clicking together in a way that is overcoming some of like the anxiety that I had when I started thinking about multi-stakeholder co-ops, because I worked for 9 years in a food co-op in Buffalo, New York that recently unionized. And before I moved to Austin, Texas, it felt like a very contentious time. And then coming to a new co-op and then taking this class and learning about multi-stakeholders and how you can do things a little bit differently and engage workers in a more intentional way is super palpable to me. And I think the new cooperative paradigm really helped frame the issue that I think a lot of single consumer model co-ops are experiencing, where we've had a lot of success up into a certain point, and now we have to do things differently. There has to be a change in the way that we are engaging with our community, because we are in such highly competitive markets. Like 3 miles down the street from me is the International Whole Foods headquarters, and how do I compete on that scale? I don't think I'm going to. So how do we do it differently?
Great. Yeah, Sarah, then Alex.
For me, I always own the fact that my role at the cooperator is probably one of the least connected to the actual cooperative, which shouldn't be the case, because I'm in the sales distribution arm of the organization and work with the financial advisor force, and we touch the clients the most. They're not our not members, but so anyhow, I'm so this course for me, I would agree. I keep thinking, well, but how are we better than, are we providing, you know, a better, like from our strategic advantage, how are we doing better than other good corporate citizens? And how are we creating different, you know, how are we meeting the needs of those in our communities differently than, you know, some of the other good corporate citizens, right? And even when I talk to my advisors, they're like, yeah, we donate a lot, we give to the community, but that's just being a good corporate citizen. So anyhow, I feel like this course combined with Sonia's course has really started to click those pieces for me. And I think this action plan is going to solidify some of that even more. And I think it's probably good that I'm struggling to try to figure out my approach with it, but hopefully it'll come together. So I think the new cooperative paradigm combined with the enterprise model has been a real win for me. So I'm glad they were back to back. I appreciate that. And I think it's, you know, helped to do that faster. But I still have a lot of things going through my mind that I still need to it's still a work in progress in my, not because of the course material, but because I keep trying to internalize it for myself. So figure out how I can make a greater difference than what I make today. So anyhow.
Great. Alex and then Angela.
Hi. So I think I'm coming from a different place. Sorry, my cat muted me. I'm coming from a slightly different place with how young my cooperative is, and I've found all of these like new tools, especially within the cooperative equilibrium models, to be really useful for refining our business plan and all of those like nitty-gritty documents early on. But because of like the level that we're at, like I'm kind of just stacking blocks together and don't have an exact framework to kind of fit it in with where we're working. So I kept kind of imagining an opportunity for a exercise similar to like Model UN with multi-stakeholder cooperatives, like utilizing pre-existing economic models that people use for those types of like simulations, but then working together to figure out how governance works in that complicated context. Because in reality, like every single enterprise is having to deal with all of these different stakeholders. Some of them are just choosing whether or not to let them have a say, because the impact and those dynamics exist regardless. So it's a reality all of us have to face, but practicing actually engaging with every single point of complexity that we're now really aware of would be really useful for kind of like solidifying these elements, especially for those of us that only have like producer and consumer cooperative experience.
Interesting. Great. Yeah, Angela and then Laura.
Sure. So I'm a credit union, and we always felt like we had to be better than the alternative, and we were always had to be so thankful for everybody walking through the doors because they had the choice of dealing with any financial institution. So now I have sort of the psychological ownership of why people deal with us, and I truly believe that our members, they feel the difference when they walk through the door. So I think that's something that I'll be able to easily talk to my teams about and give a name to. So I'm actually really appreciative of that. And also sort of the isomorphic pressures. Again, like it's about having the name and the definition of all the pressures that we feel every day, that we have to be like a bank, but we're not. So anyway, it's just having the words. So I appreciate it. I've enjoyed the course.
That's great. Let's go to Laura and then Julie.
Yeah, hi. So much like others, like I loved this course, to be honest. I think having it kind of as the third course in our program, it really did help enhance the understanding of the material and the readings from the prior courses. I started this certificate program because I wanted to gain a better appreciation for my own organization. And this to me is the course that did that. I don't know, the material really, really clicked with me. I really liked all of the readings. Being a member of a multi-stakeholder cooperative, like it really just kind of brought everything full circle to me. And I, oddly enough, really enjoyed the assignments too. So, so yeah, thank you so much, John. It really was a great course and excellent material.
That's wonderful. I'm so glad to hear. Julie, and then I think Janella.
Thank you, John, and good morning, good afternoon to everyone. It's morning here in the Philippines. Are you hearing me clear?
I'm hearing you. Yes, you sound very well.
Thank you, John. Since you mentioned about the strategic advantage and about this course, I reminisced my experience. Last year, I was one of the employees incentivized to participate in the Mondragon Cooperative Experience, and I feel blessed to have witnessed it firsthand, observing how cooperative workers operate and exceed expectations while still striving for improvement. And it is also inspiring to see how co-op members govern their own co-op. From that experience, I realized the weight of employees co-op compared to employees or workers co-op rather compared to other types of cooperatives, which was just one of our topics during our history class. But though they have come a long way, there's still much further to go. And I was thinking if I will be incorporating these learnings. But cooperatives in the Philippines are indeed distant. Even the goal of merging cooperatives poses challenges. And actually, I have no trouble identifying the issues facing cooperatives in the Philippines yet. Compared to Mondragon, we have a long journey ahead. And now I am contemplating a broader approach that would benefit not just one cooperative, but the entire cooperative movement. Like, how can we adapt Mondragon's learnings to secrets to success, and identify their key principles and practices, because they have their unique principles that they follow. So I was thinking if I will go for a more broader approach to tackle the broader systemic issues affecting our cooperative sector. So I will not only benefit one individual cooperative, but to contribute to the advancement and success of cooperatives as a whole in the Philippines. Because comparing Mondragon and our cooperative, even co-ops in Canada compared to the Philippines, we're still a long way to go. So that is also what I have learned from the learnings that from the readings that you provided, John. And I'm very thankful that I have finally already participated in this class. Thank you for the chance.
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
thank you.
Thank you. And then Janelle.
Like everyone else, are you guys hearing me clearly?
Yes.
I really enjoyed this course. What it made me realize is that we have a long way to go in terms of maximizing our cooperative identity and the potential of cooperatives where I am. So I'm wondering how we could, as Jelly said, look at the broader approach, because we don't have any cooperative here that does even one thing that maximizes. They normally operate mainly as a transactional, some relational, but we have some competition from the banks with the concierge banking. So we really have to step up our cooperative identity.
That's great. That's great. Thank you so much for offering those thoughts. I really appreciate it. Yeah, so I mean, I don't, like I said, I'm happy to let people have part of their day back. I'm sure we're all busy doing other things, and but if there are any, but I'll stay on as long as people want to stay on. And if there's any other thoughts or questions, or I don't know, I definitely I love teaching this class. It's such a great opportunity. It's Daniel Cote is you know, is the person who kind of made me realize that there's this totally different thing about co-ops, even though I had been in worker co-op for over a decade before I took the course. And so to me, it's really an honor to kind of teach this new cooperative paradigm, and really something that I think about all the time in our work that we do as co-op developers, and helping our co-ops try to get set up and be strong businesses, and think about that. So it's really great to come in and have a refresher every year, and hear it reflected back from people. So it's really great, and I really always encourage people to reach out to me. You have my contact information, so if there are questions you have, whether it's in the program or whether it's actually, you know, around some co-op work you're doing, I think you know, I had one student ended up working with cab drivers and women cab drivers in India, and you know, ended up he and I ended up having several conversations about it. So I'm always happy to engage and help people in their work going forward. So it doesn't have the class ends, but I hope that our you know, communication continues. And of course, I'm sure Tara can give a bigger spiel about the Alumni Association. We do have an Alumni Association that we really encourage people to join and participate in. And I don't know if you want to say any more about that, Tara. It's kind of free ad space for us.
Yeah, so it's students and alumni. I'll see if I can pull up the link. Cooperative Management Education Student and Alumni Cooperative. Because we like to make things long in this program. It's really great. It's a space for students and alumni to come together to just keep the conversation going. We had last week we had somebody who graduated 2019, and he came and spoke about climate and cooperatives, and so he's done quite a lot of work at the Canadian level, Canadian Co-op Housing. He was actually one of the founders of the Climate Action Task Force, and he did a presentation for us maybe a year ago on that was kind of doom and gloom, and he wanted to come back and say do a kind of polar opposite of that, of but there's good things too. So the recording for that should be coming out soon. Yeah, it's a really great place to just keep this conversation going.
Okay, I mean, I know, like you said, we have 20 minutes left, but I'm happy to let people. Alex, do you want to?
Yeah. I have a question regarding the action memo. The problem I've identified for our super young co-op is attracting people, especially with where we are. There isn't much cooperative action beyond consumer and producer. And so get that educational and language gap is very vast between us and potential employees, or not employees, co-owners. We're looking for founding owners. So having that opportunity to educate, especially when we're still we're in that weird in-between zone of not having a large enough community that's educated to really get out there. So I'm wondering how because we can't just demonstrate the practical benefit of the cooperative advantage, how can we communicate the theory of cooperative advantage in a compelling and accessible way? And if there might be cooperatives out there that specialize in communications, advertising, essentially writing propaganda that is really compelling. I'm very interested in semiotics and propaganda, but I know enough to know it's an art form. When Moses Cody and the cooperative movement up in Canada was staunchly against any sort of advertising. Edward Bernays was just killing it with advertising in America. We still eat bacon and eggs to this day as the American staple breakfast because of what some specialists were doing with kind of molding the public perspective.
Yeah, that's really interesting because marketing is an area I did at Union Cab, and it's always been kind of a big love of mine. In fact, I'll be in Austin in May for a 2-day workshop at the Wizard Academy. So one thing I would definitely do, and it's not co-op related, but check out the Wizard Academy .com and or .org maybe, and it's the Wizard of Ads is. It's a marketer called Roy Williams who he started doing relationship marketing back in the 80s before anyone talked about relationship marketing. And he talks about type 1 and type 2 customers, right? Type 1 customers are transactional, type 2 customers are relational. And almost all the profit from a business comes from the relational customers. But 90% of the advertising is aimed at the transactional customer. And he talks about how you need to turn that language around. And, he doesn't really know much about co-ops or ever talks about co-ops, but co-ops are the ultimate relational marketing organization because we have it built into everything we do is about relationships. And so, so his memos, he writes this Monday morning memo about different topics. He actually has 3 books from the memos when he did them by fax. And now they're on email, but he has a whole archive on their site. They have, and you can kind of go through and find different topics, use keywords, and you can probably find some interesting ways of thinking about it.
Nice.
But yeah, definitely, I think within the action memo is thinking about how do you create that language, how do you create that community, how do you bring it out in the community? I forget where are you living?
Harrisonburg, Virginia, so the Shenandoah Valley region.
So, yeah, so I mean, I think it's thinking how do you build that sort of mindset, right? Of people that might know consumer co-ops, how do you help them make that leap to understand what a worker co-op model looks like? And of course, a big part of it, which is also, I think it's tied into what Cote talks about, is a big part of my also sort of intellectual foundation is Hirsch, I forget his first name, but it's this concept of exit voice and loyalty, which is people in organizations, he argued, will use their voice or they'll use their feet and leave. And so again, are really designed to elevate the voice of their members. And so workers also, in some longitudinal studies, in fact, there's a book called What Workers Want, and what workers want, it turns out, is more important than wages and benefit, actually being treated like a human being in the workplace.
Yeah.
And so that's another thing to kind of play off and thinking about. Some of the benefits of worker ownership is just having agency and not being treated like just another tool in the toolbox.
Yeah.
And then, I think it's, sometimes you might need to use the term employee ownership just because that's how it gets addressed in the US.
Yeah.
But yeah, I tend to avoid using employee. I tend to focus more on worker ownership. But I think then within within your industry, then finding those people who are curious, right? Who want to have a curious thing about voice, and then finding a way, to reach out to them. But,
and do you know of any cooperative communications firms looking at that opportunity for cooperation amongst cooperatives?
There are some. I don't know. It's hard to find ones that are really active, but there are some connected to the U.S. Federation of Worker Co-ops. They have a member registry. I've reached out to them and have never gotten a response. Smallworld.coop though, Rob McClinton, he is kind of re-engaged with really wanting to help the cooperative community. We're working right now to do our website. I don't know how much he would do in terms of building messaging, but he might know people, and he would probably be the person I would at least start asking.
Yeah, that would be awesome. It's the time balancing of the practical startup things that we need to do, but then also especially in this area, there's been a lot of anti-union propaganda, which also serves as anti-cooperatives. So kind of having to deconstruct that kind of if the workers are in charge, then everything falls apart, trying to really tease that very tried and true messaging that's been pretty effective in our agricultural region with Purdue and pharmaceuticals like Merck. They really, and Hershey chocolate for that matter, all of those factories are in this area, so they really want to keep workers working. But
yeah. So I mean, I would. That's funny, right? Because it's funny because sometimes one thing you can really use as language, I would really focus on the co-op values of self-help and self-responsibility.
Oh yeah.
Because that's going to resonate more in a very conservative environment than things like, democracy, sadly.
Yeah.
But once people are engaging in self-help and self-responsibility, then how do you engage with other people in a way that's fair? And that's where democracy comes in. That's where equality, equity come in.
Right.
The other values are all right there. So, but yeah, because I know that just even here in Washington State, I mean, we have a number of pretty conservative politicians who totally understand co-ops, and they come to it from those values, from self-responsibility is what they believe. And even George W. Bush, he promoted the ownership society, wanting to right. I mean, that was his big thing before 9/11. And but that he was talking more in kind of constructs of shareholders and ESOPs rather than worker ownership. But it's a way of using that same language to talk about co-ops and to a more conservative base.
Oh, and that sounds great, Tara. Thank you.
She's
still around. Oh yeah.
Thank you for
Thank you so much.
yeah, this Wizard Academy I was just looking up, and I've driven by it and been like, what is that? Like, I was totally out of context. It's in a really beautiful part of Austin. So that's really exciting. If you have a chance.
I'm actually really excited because I'm going there in May, and I've never done an in-person class there. And
It'll be really nice. The weather is beautiful here in like March, April, May.
And it's his take on marketing to generations. He doesn't believe in birth cohort generations like Gen Z.
Nice.
X. He calls it a pendulum. So we move from a we generation to a me generation construct. And like right now, we're in a we generation as the pendulum is going back towards me. So we're in the same period. He would argue that we were as a culture, as a mindset, as we were in 1944 and 1864 and 1784, which are all really pretty crazy years.
And it does vary by economic strata, like access to technology as well, and like the way that that kind of impacts your mind. So there's like kind of stripes in cultural shifts based on access. But yeah.
So like maybe I'll stop in at Wheatsville in Austin.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
But, all right. Well, that's all I have. This has been great. It's been great reading the posts and the counter posts, and I'm looking forward to the action memos. It's always really, really exciting. And I do hope that people come and share on the 20th. I'll send some more emails out about that as we get closer. But yeah, definitely, I think it'll be fun. And like I said, even if you don't think your action memo is perfect, it's also will be a good place to just workshop it and get advice from your colleagues as well as Tara and I. So good luck. And if, for anyone I may not see, good luck on the rest of your program. I hope that you all do really well and see you do great things in the co-op world.
Great, thanks.
Great.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you, Tara. I'll reach out.
Tara.
Thank you.
Save the chat. All right. How'd that go? Okay.
Yeah, I think that was good.
I never know what to do on these office hours. I feel like I should probably have a presentation, but I also kind of feel like it's their time.
I feel like people are okay to end early too. It's like good if they have a space and
yeah. I mean,
create a space to have a conversation if they have questions, and definitely like it's nice that they have that space for you to just like I don't know how to do this, and I definitely notice like because I have both Jelly and Janella.
Okay.
I don't know if there's a bit of a language barrier as well.
I imagine there might be. I would take account for that too. And
I don't know, like Janella's in Trinidad or something.
Yeah, Trinidad, right.
So I don't know what language they normally speak there, but it definitely comes out in their work or
it's English, but it's always one of those things where writing style and stuff like that. So, 'cause, I think Trinidad's in English, primarily English speaking.
Yeah, I don't know, but definitely good questions, I think, and it sounds like you got a lot of favorable.
Yeah, it was nice to hear the feedback. It's nice. Just see how people are thinking about it. So it's good.
Just so you know, I'm a little bit behind on my marking